You're listening to XS Gaming Podcast, a podcast for gamers by gamers, with your hosts Xander Skullion and James Gruesome, bringing you something old, something new, and a little bit of nostalgia too.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of XS Gaming Podcast. This is episode 85. We're recording this on the 8th of May. I'm one of your hosts, Xander Skullion, and joined with me is my wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up, James?
Greetings, everybody. I hope everybody is well on this wonderful Mother's Day, and to anybody listening that may be a mother at any time, if not today. Happy Mother's Day, and to my own and everybody else's, and I hope you're doing well. And sorry I missed last episode. I got a little bit sick. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm much better today, and it's glad to be back.
Yeah, I woke up this morning playing Danzig. Mother. Mother. But we are joined with a very special guest for this episode. We are joined by Dave Vogt. What's up, Dave?
What's up, guys? It's great to be here and join all of our lovely people out in internet land.
And definitely. Now, for some of you guys who don't know who Dave Vogt is, Dave, how about you let some of our listeners know what you're all about? I mean, we do have something really cool that we're going to talk about after our break, after we get into gaming news, because you're also a game developer, but I kind of spilled the beans a little bit on you. But go ahead and tell our listeners who you are, man.
All right, well, besides a developer, I'm a little bit competitive, go for high scores and whatnot, hold a few records in some Castlevania games, and just some Doom speed runs, just this and that. Just a general, just huge fan of gaming.
Awesome. Now, well, what is it that, kind of, because I've always wanted to ask this, because, I watched some of the Twin Galaxy stuff, and I've always wanted to ask someone that does do competitive gaming, what was it that made you have that drive to be like, I want to have the highest score?
That's a good question. Well, like a lot of people, like after like 2008 or so, I watched The King of Kong, because I thought it looked kind of interesting, and I'm sure you're familiar with the movie. It's the whole skewed Donkey Kong competition.
It's very, even my wife found that interesting, and she's more apt to watch video game movies and documentaries than play any games, but even she rather enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was something else, and it just kind of, I don't know, it sat with me and was kind of like, you know what? That would be really something to do. That would be a hell of a thing to go for. So I did, and it's pretty addictive. Like, it's constantly pushing yourself, and when you're coming across other players, and it's like, iron sharpening iron. It's really cool. It's a lot of self-discovery, a lot of fun.
Yeah, like before the show, I was looking at some of your accomplishments, and it's I have to say, man, it's a wide array of like different consoles, everything from like the Nintendo Wii to the Xbox 360, PSN. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, Super Castlevania 4, you got the highest points on that, and also a Castlevania game that me and James really love, and that's the Castlevania Adventure Rebirth. That's such an excellent game. Love it.
That's amazing. Like, so few people have played it, and it's like just this undiscovered gem.
It really is.
It fits in so good with the others, and I got it as soon as I saw it. I also had the Contra Rebirth. I didn't get the Gradius one. I just don't play that one like quite as much, but I still always kind of wanted to get it. But I really enjoyed the Contra and the Castlevania. Anytime I pop on my Wii, I pretty much end up playing it at some point, because it's just it has that classic feel to it, and it's just kind of in its own thing. It's kind of a remake, and it's kind of not, and it's just it's definitely one Castlevania fans should definitely seek out. Like, you can still get it on the Wii U through I think you have to go to the Wii channel first, and then to the Wii store for the WiiWare, but it is worth it.
Oh, it's very much so. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, and whenever I hear someone say, man, I wish we had another 2D Castlevania, I'm like, have you played Rebirth? And they're like, nope. I'm like, you need to play it.
There you go.
Awesome.
Problem solved, man.
And it feels perfect with the Wiimote holding it sideways like an old NES controller. It's perfect, man. I love it. And speaking of some NES stuff, now I'm going to get into a little bit of the gaming news, and this is really interesting. This is from Retro USB. They're making a Famiclone, another clone console. This is going to be HDMI NES, and it's going to be heading our way the summer release. And there's a sizable group of gamers that have great pleasure playing retro games on the original systems and getting the best out of their old titles. And there's always a challenge that these NES games or consoles, sometimes they don't stand the test of time. Sometimes we have to replace the bits and the 72-pin connectors and stuff like that. But what makes this console really interesting is compared to the Retron 5, this is going to be a full HDMI NES using the original NES parts. And not only will you be able to play the NES, but you'll also be able to play Famicom. And it's pushing 72p widescreen HDMI output. Let's see, the carts, of course, NES is going to be the front loading and top loading is going to be Famicom. It's also got 4 controller ports as well, and it's even got online scoreboard system through USB. That's right up your alley, Dave.
Yes, it is. That's exciting.
So what do you guys think about this? I'm kind of excited about it. The price point is going to be, looks like it's going to be $185.
See, that one, it's cool. It sounds like a definite, like more of a bargain option to, if you remember the one that came out that was, I think recently they had a gold-plated one come out.
And, the analog.
Yeah, it sounds maybe like a slightly, because they used the actual parts. It was just so unaffordable for so many people, but it seemed like they were shooting for more of a straight, high-end collector market, where a lot of us are collectors, but we're not really high-end. And that way, I mean, it sounds like a cool one because it does have the original parts. It definitely, that could be an appeal to a lot of people. I would still probably go for, because I hadn't got like a Retron 5 yet, I still would shoot for one of those just to have some more crammed into one. But it sounds like a cool option, especially with the online leaderboards.
And what about you, Dave?
I'm all for it. I have a Retron 3 and a Duo already, and I'm pretty interested in getting a 5, but this is more of a straight shooting, just straight up NES. So that's a pretty fantastic option. And then if you couple in the online functionality and using Famicom parts, the top loading section, seems like it's going to scratch a different itch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when we first started this podcast with, me and James first started the show, we were talking about the Retron 5. This is when the Retron 5 was just starting to be announced from Hyperkin, and we were both really excited about it, and we were apt about getting it back when it was like only $100. But then the price started going up, it started getting pushed back, and sadly, James and I still haven't gotten the Retron 5. I still kind of want to get one, but I keep hearing like good and bad things about it. But me personally, I want the Retron 5 just for something more practical. To be able to retire my older consoles, save some space for maybe some newer consoles, some consoles that I have that aren't hooked up because, I had the Super Nintendo and all that stuff hooked up. I can unhook some of those consoles and rehook up the Sega Saturn, stuff like that.
That's for sure.
So I mean,
definitely a good space saver because, you're dealing with that. Me, I can have all my consoles out. I just end up with a big mess. I have the space for them, but I'm not a very organized person. So it just ends up being a big jumble of mess. So for me, definitely having that streamlined. And I recently had a friend of mine, he called. A lot of us are that friend that other friends call when they have a gaming question. And that happened to be the one for this friend. And he had asked me because he was thinking of, wanting to get back into, getting a lot of games. It's just, it hits people sometimes, and he was asking about the Retron, and he ended up getting one. He's liked it so far. I told him it was great for options because I was like, dude, just if you're getting back into playing again, it's going to be kind of brutal for some games. If you're not expecting it, you're just like, I want to play. For instance, he wanted to play Super Castlevania 4, and I'm like, it's not like it's $10, man. And it's going to be a bit higher. And for some of those games, the people that just want to play them, having that Retron, or even with this newer system, it gives them the option, well, at least with the NES and the Famicom, that, you can get a lot cheaper versions of these games that cost a whole lot over here. And if you're just a person that just wants to play the game, there's a lot of Japanese versions that are very playable, and it's a much cheaper option.
Yeah, definitely. Now, not only do we have another clone console that's going to be coming out, but this was brought to my attention. I was listening to the CU podcast from Pat the NES Punk, and he mentioned this right here, and this is a retro Bluetooth receiver. This is put out by Analog, the same people who put out that really high-end NES that's made of space metal that we were talking about earlier, and gold-plated and all that jazz. But this one's a little cheaper. It's nothing high-end. It's actually going to be $19.99 on PlayAsia.com. And it says, the retro receiver from Analog. We had partnered with 8-Bit Do to develop a wireless experience for the original NES unlike anything before. The retro receiver is a Bluetooth receiver that you plug into your original NES, and it allows you to play your NES wirelessly with any NES model, the Analog NT, and any aftermarket NES system. So it works with all the Famiclones as well. Now, it can work with any of the NES controllers, but it also has controller capability with all 8-bit Do controllers and arcade sticks, PS3, PS4, Wiimote, and Wii U. And, of course, some of the special features is you can actually map out the buttons to your liking. It's compatible with 2 to 4 player retro receivers for multiplayer games. And, yeah, it runs off of a DC power supply directly from the NES controller port as well, which is really interesting because a lot of the, some of the controllers actually for NES got the power through the actual controller port, so yeah. This is really interesting. What do you guys think about that? I'm all about it.
This one, I guess so you can actually use the original. I guess does it have a port the Bluetooth shoots to that you can plug in the original controllers? Is that what it's saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
When I first heard about that, and I heard that the same place you did on the CU podcast, and I was just kind of thinking it was its own just controller, but the fact if it links up to something else you plug into, because, I kind of like collecting controllers, and it's kind of cool using those. And just anytime, that wireless option, because, like I said, whether you're dealing with space or just a clump of wires, like I have, anytime you can just kind of bypass that helps out some and have a little bit more distance, and especially with talking like the Retron 5, I know I was not a big fan of its controller at all, and it has a lot of options. And nowadays, that just seems to be one of the things that keeps coming out is more and more options for different ways to play a lot of these retro systems. And anytime something like that comes out, it's nothing but good. It's a long way from the Acclaim wireless controllers from back in 88, 89 that for some reason I asked for those for Christmas and not a game. I don't know why. I managed to take them back to the store by saying they didn't work, which I guess they kind of worked, but they didn't work very good, and that was enough reason to return them. So Christmas ended up okay for me after I got rid of those damn controllers.
What about you, Dave? What do you think about these controllers?
I'm all in. This is, I end up with rat's nests of wires, and just the fact that I can hook up the NES over on this CRT over here and just use a Wii U Pro controller or a PS4 controller or whatever, and not have to worry about that, or, hooked up on, say I get one of the new, the HD NES that's hooked up like across the room. You don't want cords reaching across your living room.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, a lot of those older controllers don't have long cords either. So, that's really cool. And like I said, it's $19.99. It's a lot cheaper than I was expecting. I thought it was gonna be like a $50, thing that you buy online, but $20, that's really affordable. So, yeah, guys, definitely look into that. It's PlayAsia.com. You can get this retro receiver put out by Analog and Analog and 8-Bit Do. made this. Now, the last two bit of news that we're going to be talking about, and this is kind of like old news now, but the way we do our shows bi-weekly, so this happened during our little week break. And that, of course, is the announcement of the release for the NX. Nintendo released that the NX is supposed to be coming out in March 2017. And I'm going to pass this over to you, Dave. Like, what was your initial thoughts when you heard March instead of the holiday season?
Oh, hang on one moment, guys. I'm sorry. I'm on the telephone, buddy. Yep. No, you can have them. I'll have them. Okay. So March instead of holiday, it's kind of weird, but the reasoning that Kamishima said is to make sure that they have a strong lineup. And I'm okay with that, and I don't have to have the NX in November. I can wait until March. If that's going to help them with positioning, and then that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
we
definitely.
We can sit tight for a little bit.
Now, what about you, James?
It's just hearing about it, and it's still kind of weird, the fact that it's like, well, it's coming out, and it just kind of makes you think. And I'm still hoping with the Zelda, I guess, are they still planning on like a cross release? Because I know at one point I said if the Zelda did not come out on Wii U, like I was probably not gonna get another Nintendo console. I just kind of felt like a little bit of a lack of faith, and I've been a supporter of the Wii U. I really like it. I have one. I play it, quite a bit. It's got a lot of great exclusives, and maybe that was the problem. It was harder, I heard, for developers to work. Maybe having the gamepad, trying to implement it. Maybe some people didn't want to chance the risk of doing a game just for the one system when they couldn't put out on multi-platforms. Anytime a new system comes out, it's still always kind of exciting, and we're still always a little critical at the same time of, what exactly it's going to do. I'm still wondering about the, with the handheld portion, like, is that going to knock out, the 3DS? They have such a strong performance with that. I still think there's just kind of like a lot of questions with it for it to be coming up, which almost seems like, so when is it? 17? Yeah, it's 16 already.
March.
And it's, it still seems like that seems pretty close to me. That's less than a year. And I imagine just, a lot of those questions will be answered along the way, and we'll hear more and more. Missing out on the holiday season. Obviously they know what they're doing. They have a plan, and there's a reason they're not wanting to put it out. And you could say that it's a lot better instead of trying to rush a product out just for the holiday, just to make sales, and end up with it being subpar and have people bitching more than normal. So sometimes
end up like the Wii. Remember how much of a nightmare that was?
Yeah.
That console was hard to find.
It just was impossible. So it's good. It's better. The more you can have out, it's better not to have people fighting, and it's better to get more kinks worked out and possibly have a better lineup in the long run. I think that shows you care more about the product instead of just getting out at a certain deadline.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also heard that they were doing it as well because of the way the market calendar works. Like, the market calendar doesn't work the same way as like the normal calendar. And, with them releasing it in March, I heard that this was going to be a way for them to actually start off the year like on a good note, waiting this long. And also this would be like, a chance for like the new CEO. This is like his chance to actually like put on his boots and go. It's no longer any more of Iwata's stuff. This is his chance to kind of show his position of being the new CEO, and I think that's another reason why they said, or rumored that they said they were going to do it now. Of course, one of the things they did mention was the fact that unlike when the Wii U came out, there were still with the Wii, and when they put out the Wii U, they were not putting it out as a loss. Like, they weren't going to lose anything putting out the Wii U. Now, since the Wii U hasn't sold as well, they're actually a little bit more tension with this new console. So that's another reason why they're kind of wanting to wait and put it out and not have to lose even more money, because the first time a company puts out consoles, they lose a lot of money before they see the return, just like any other business or anything like that. So I think that's another reason why they're doing it. Of course, there's been so many rumors, and it's kind of exciting, to be honest, because, you know, before we did the show, Dave, we were talking about how the internet kind of spoils us. Like, we know everything that's going on, and we don't know that much about the NX. And to me, it's scary, but at the same time, it's kind of exciting. You know, it brings back those memories of, you know, seeing concept art or hearing rumors, and, you know, all of us are anticipated, and there's no doubt that Nintendo has been a subject for many, you know, YouTube channels and many podcasts, because we don't know what's going on, and it's killing us, and I love it. You know?
Yeah, nobody else seems to be able to, like, keep things under wraps so well.
I know, it's like freaking, you know, special forces over at freaking Nintendo factory or whatever. But
and almost every Nintendo console could be their last. That always seems to be one of the big questions too. People wonder, like, when are they going to get out of the console market and just go to games? And it's like, they're still kicking it, and it's still, you know, it's still cool to see what they do to hang in there and still keep pushing at it. And I think it's something they love doing, and I hope they get to keep doing it as long as they want to, and it holds up.
Yeah, I think they will, like, regardless, because even like the GameCube and the Wii U, they're making money on units sold. You know, they took a lot of hits in other areas with the Wii U, but after coming off such a strong run with the Wii, and what sounded like they have some really clever stuff up their sleeves for the NX, you know, they could continue to be bold, and, you know, they can take a few hits along the way, but regardless, their business is still growing.
Oh, yeah. Now, what we're going to do, guys, we're going to take our little break before we get into our main topic, and that's talking about a little game that Dave's been developing, and he's actually developed it. He's made an expansion for it, and it's a really interesting roguelike video game called The Bounty. And I was kind of creative with this music break, you know, because a couple of days ago was Cinco de Mayo. Dave has records for Castlevania. Me and James, we love Simon's Quest. Bloody Tears is awesome. So how about a mariachi cover of Bloody Tears? So sit back, relax, guys, listen to this, and we'll be right back. And we are back, guys, and that was a mariachi cover of Bloody Tears, and that's actually from a YouTube channel called the Mariachi Entertainment System. Be sure to check those guys out. I have a link on the description below, as well as all of Dave's endeavors, but be sure to check out that YouTube channel, because they do other mariachi covers. They did one of Zelda that was just really, really awesome, but Yeah, Dave, we wanted to get into the game you've been making, and you developed the Bounty. And how about you tell some of the listeners what is the Bounty?
Okay, that's such a hard question. It really is. There's two ways to answer it. One is to more technical. It's instead of going into genres, I like to more relate to it's kind of like Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior meets Rogue meets Zelda meets Doom meets everything. There's so many smaller things in there. It's a high score focused role playing game.
Oh wow!
Kind of, yeah. So it's a real big mishmash of influences. So I guess ultimately what the game is really about is about self-discovery and self-improvement.
Yeah, I remember before we started the show, I mean, that's something that we were kind of talking about, and we see it a lot with the more indie side of gaming, and that is this old school mentality of gaming in the sense that, you play a game now, the game holds your hand. It tells you how to press the X button, how to use the square button, and, if you're an old school gamer like you and I or James, I mean, this is the most tedious part and the most annoying thing about starting a new game is like, man, they're teaching me how to hold a controller. I know how to hold this controller. And, we go through the days of games like, Simon's Quest, where you would start the game and they would just throw you into it, or Fox Nanadu or Crystalis. These games didn't hold your hand. They were just like, here you go explore. And what was really nice about that was not only did you explore it and you had your own experience, but your friend would be playing the same game and they'd have their own experiences and their own secrets, and you kind of share your own thing about that game and find out different things. And that's what I'm getting from the Bounty. That's what it looks like the Bounty's kind of thriving on is, word of mouth and more community than just, this is a game, this is how you play it,
Yeah, that's you pretty much nailed it. It's a lot of obtuse stuff below the obvious, I have to grind out points for monsters and I have to solve these puzzles that are put in front of me, but there's so many smaller things that are just obtuse. Like I said, kind of like Simon's Quest is like the king of that stuff, where they give you a tiny hint, but that's it, and there's nothing else, and it's something you discover on your own, and hopefully you communicate to your friends, and they're like, oh yeah, wow, that's cool. I found this over here though, and they're like, what, really? And it grows into this huge experience for everybody.
Yes, one Castlevania, even the original. I remember there's just those certain places that you would have to duck down on.
Yeah,
and you get a little crown that would pop up, and at each stage, I'm still thinking there's still ones. I'm not exactly sure where they are, and the Simon's Quest has got to be one of those notorious ones. Are the people lying? Were the hints wrong? Were they bad translations? But somehow, whether you figured it out on your own or through a hint book, somewhere you got it, and it's that kind of sharing and finding new things. Like you said, that, discovery, and I could see from you developing it, putting in different things that, you wanted to see in a game and go through is just a very cool thing.
Yeah, it's something that's lost on a lot of games nowadays, and it's in there in spades, like that whole, I found this thing in Zelda by burning this bush. I'm going to tell Jimmy at school tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, Jimmy goes home and he does it, and, you guys all talk about it with your friends. And
yeah, even Mario games had that, I remember in Super Mario World when you beat all the special stages, how it would turn all the Koopa shells into the Mario heads and the flying piranhas into pumpkin heads, and the enemies would change. And I remember a friend of mine showed me that, and I learned how to do it. And then I told one of my friends how to do it. And this is a funny story. I actually, unlocked all the stages in Super Mario World, and my friend had Super Mario World as well, but he wanted to borrow my cartridge to play this new game, because it felt new, even though it was the same stages. It felt new with the enemies. And I remember I borrowed Kirby's Superstar from him, and I swear, because when he gave it back to me, it was not the same game. I think he freaking swapped carts. I think he gave me his Super Mario World and kept mine because
man.
I got mine back and I'm like, hey, my save file's like at 20%. What the hell?
That was the weirdest thing, man. I thought I broke the game.
Yeah, it was really weird because I mean it didn't like play a little sound. It wasn't like, aha, you unlocked this. It was just like you were done and you went to go play and you're like, why does the Koopa have a Mario head? That's really weird. But
oh, what's happening? Everything's weird.
It's like I did something wrong with my Game Genie earlier or something. I don't know. But yeah, I love that. I mean, I love that exploration and secretive kind of society-ness of video games. That's what I like about, the Dark Souls series. And I remember I was mentioning that to you about, Dark Souls, where people, there's so much exploration and then people talk about the difficulty and they're like, man, this game's so hard. I'm like, it's not hard. It's just old school. It's going back to the days where you had to memorize enemy patterns. You had to memorize, where to go because you didn't have a map to look at. Back in the day, we had to make our own maps using graph paper. So I mean, that's what I like about it, and that's what I really like about the bounty. Now, you have the bounty, but you also have the expansion as well. Would you like to expand on that? What's the expansion?
Okay, so the original game of the bounty is that was released in July of 2014. Mm-hmm. This is I don't know if expansion is really the best word for it. It's I rebuilt it from the ground up, new engine, everything.
Wow.
So the game is sort of like based in episodes. It's basically just a nice way of saying chapters or levels. But the original game was 3, and this one is 4, and there's everything's been expanded upon. There's more monsters, more secrets, more treasure, more more of everything. And on top of that, I added what's called endless mode, which is actually more of a straight up roguelike experience. It's everything is randomized every time you play.
Yeah, see, I saw gameplay footage of that, and when I saw that, the game that came to my mind was, like games like Fatal Labyrinth on the Sega Genesis. When I saw that, I was like, oh man, this is cool. I like this. And I like how the battle system's kind of like, you were mentioning earlier about, Dragon Quest and Dragon Warrior. I like how the fight sequences, you just see the enemy and you're fighting. Like, that made me think of, Dragon Warrior and Phantasy Star, really old school RPGs. And
yeah,
I thought that was really cool. And, what on consoles, or I know it's probably definitely on PC, but what kind of platforms is the bounty on?
Not too long, buddy. PC is the lead platform because it's, the easiest you make it and it's there. I'm releasing Endless Mode as a separate release for, Android. And then, the full game's gonna be ported to Wii U.
Oh, wow. Now, how was that experience with the, I mean, I know you probably can't get into too much with developing for the Wii U, but, was it just surreal? Like, sitting there in your living room and being like, I'm developing a game for Nintendo.
It's really bizarre. Like, every time I get an email from them, it feels strange, like kind of 8-year-old me would be freaking out so badly right now. And they're, it's, as a business experience, it's fantastic. They are like ridiculously nice. It's weird. Like, they're just like really personable and really friendly, really helpful people.
Yeah, definitely.
The tech side of it is they have good documentation. It's not too hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool, and that's why I've told a lot of people about the Wii U. The Wii U has a lot of indie games, but the thing is, you just have to kind of look into it. One of the indie games I really enjoyed on the Wii U was the Racing Neo or Neo Racer. It's like the F-Zero game that we never had. You know, it's amazing. And I always tell people, you know, I'm talking to someone that doesn't own the Wii U, and they're like, well, Nintendo needs to make another F-Zero. And I'm like, have you played this? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, you need to. Because, I mean, that's indie in a nutshell. I feel like the indie market is taking the stuff we really loved about video games because they're gamers. And they're making games for gamers. It's not, you know, big companies, you know, trying to make a quick buck with the next Call of Duty or Battlefield. It's people that are doing it with love. And, you know, that's the reason why I love, you know, Kickstarters and Indiegogos and Patreons. I know sometimes some people put them in a negative light, but, you know, these kind of platforms are great for people like you or, you know, companies like Yacht Club or the guys who made games like Weekend RPG. This is a great way for them to make a game for us to play. They don't have to go through the bells and whistles of finding a publisher and trying to get with the corporate side of things and making things more complicated. This is a great way for us to support you guys, and you guys support us by feeding our gaming addiction. You know?
Well said.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, definitely guys, I'll be having the bounty, all the descriptions and everything that Dave's been working on the description of this episode, so you guys can check it out. I mean, you got merchandise, you got, you know, of course you have Twitter, and, are you going to be expanding anything more on the bounty by any chance?
Okay, well, what I would like to do, is going to depend on just kind of, because being essentially a one-man team, I have help with the monsters with, this man, Mike Wright, help on the music, but it's mostly a one-man show. I'm developing another game it's actually finished, but, I'll share it with you very soon.
Awesome. And if you guys want to know about that, be sure to follow him on Twitter.
Yes. That will be, actually I've been testing it and posting my scores on Twitter, so look for Bug Attack.
Nice.
Between those and then moving forward, I'm not sure how long I can support it, but I would really like to do maybe, every 6 weeks or so, release a new Endless Dungeon mode. You know, just a free update, just a little something extra for everyone to play. It's really not that difficult to build at this point, so it's something I'd like to support post-launch.
Nice. Now, of course, guys, you can check out Dave Vogt. You can check out all of his endeavors on the description of this episode. I highly recommend you guys check it out. And speaking of Mike Wright, I do have to give him a shout out because he was going to be on the podcast and he had some issues come up right before the show, so he actually hooked me up with you, Dave, and it's been great, man. You've been a very fantastic guest, and what we're going to be doing before we end this episode is we're going to be getting to games we've been playing recently. And I'm going to pass it over to James, because James he's been playing something really cool lately. And James, I want you to talk about this. What have you been playing?
Well, I've been on a big 64 kick, as I've mentioned, and I've kind of been on that path with no time limit, you know, to maybe get a full set of 64 games. But I've kind of been jumping across the ocean to Japan and experimenting with a couple of games that I'd always wanted to play. I think the last time I mentioned I'd got the Virtua Pro 64, which is pretty much a WCW NWO World Tour, what we got over here, and it had a great roster because you get a lot of the WCW guys. I recommend that one for anyone that loved the AKI system on those 64 games. The first one's very affordable. The second one, for the longest time, and these are both games I've wanted to play, you know, since they came out. So, you know, 16, close to 20 years I've wanted to try these. And part 2, I ordered it. It actually dropped in price. It used to be around like $60, and I found a copy on eBay for like $33, like with shipping. I was like, hey, I've been enjoying this other one so much. This is the one I've heard everybody talk about. It's Japan's version of WrestleMania 2000. You know, there's no ladders, there's no cages. It's just wrestling, but sometimes that's good enough. And I been waiting a month. You know, I'd contacted the seller because it seemed a little bit long. I got stuff from Japan before. And, but I understand because I work at the post office and I understand how things happen sometimes. So I just kept in touch with him. He was very nice, very cool. I was like, I'm not going to file a claim or any crap like that. And I said, I'm just going to wait. And it showed up. And the bad thing was I was off that whole day. I watched the mail carrier put the mail in my box. I didn't even notice it till 11 o'clock that night, right before I was going to bed.
Oh, no.
I texted Xander that night. I was like, damn it, dude. I was like, this came in the mailbox like all day. So I go and I said, I'm going to check out the intro. And I ended up playing a match. But, you know, it's very easy. Most, from what I hear, Japanese games play if you have a Game Shark. That way you don't have to do any kind of modding to the cartridges. Some people swap out the backs. That's just too much work. Game Shark, pop it on, no problem. And I opted for I was thinking of putting in the Game Shark code that's supposed to translate part of the menu, but it was just so long. I used to put Game Shark codes in my No Mercy on the 64 just for barbed wire chairs and fire outside the ring and just all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was like, you know, I'd rather play this game than put in this stupid code. So I just went to it. I looked at a couple of YouTube videos, and they gave me a great little pathway. And speaking of difficulty, I did want to bring this up because I felt this kind of it put me in my place because I was playing the game and I was going through it, and I was like, man, I found the option screen. I said, I need a little bit more. And I was like, man, this chump, he was playing on very easy. And I was like, yeah, that's why. So I go up to medium. I just want a little bit of a challenge, and I kind of got my ass handed to me on there, and it kind of put me in my place because I'm, you know, I used to play 60-minute Iron Man matches on very hard, getting 100 falls. Like, I was really obsessed with No Mercy, and it's been a while, so I put it on not very easy, but just easy. I left it on that, and I'm gonna work my way up. It just kind of humbled me a little bit, but. It's been a blast. I've got it on in the other room right now. I was playing a match and posted one up on the XSGAMING page, and I already had a couple people comment. You know, they recognize the wrestlers. It's like, what game is that? You know, and it's got because they have trophies and belts. They do a lot of trophies in Japan. I'm playing the kind of like the WrestleMania mode. It's called the Royal Road, and you just go through a year of progress. And there's lots of guys to unlock. It's an all Japan wrestling focused game, but it does have other organizations like New Japan and FMW and Michinoku. It just has them under different names, kind of like a lot of wrestling games we've had over the years have not had the licenses, whether it's Fire Pro or a lot of the other AKI games. They've had wrestlers that weren't really licensed. They just changed their look. But if you know the wrestlers, they're on there. It also adds for those who know, you know, the system, when you get the special and you hit the stick, some of the guys have a special. So if you hit the stick again for the taunt while you have a special, you get an extra one. You can only do once per match. And none of the American versions of the game had that. But I've really been having a blast. I've been playing that the most. I finally tried on the Wii U the Fatal Frame, the demo that I'd had on there, taking up so much space for so long. So it was time to either play that, because I was like, I'm going to have to get rid of it because I have no room on my system. And I actually really enjoyed it. And if I'd had enough space on my system, I probably would have bought it. I really thought the demo kind of took up pretty much the same space as the whole game. But that wasn't really the case. The game took up a whole lot more than I had. But I enjoyed the use of the gamepad. You know, it made me a little nervous, kind of bugged me out a little bit playing it. It was really cool, a nice exclusive that if you have the room, you know, you might want to check it out. I definitely recommend the demo. It's a few stages. And then other than that, just on the 64, I've been playing Super Off-Road, which I picked, or Off-Road Adventure, I believe it's the 64 version. A lot better than I thought it would be. You know, it's not the old school Iron Man, Ivan, whatever, like on the Super NES, but still pretty good for what it is. And Beetle Adventure Racing, I've probably mentioned that one before. Definitely, I think it's one of those hidden gems on the 64. The, you know, secret pass you find to have secret pass. Like, you can play through 3 laps in a race and not find all the little shortcuts and such. Definitely would have been great, with the 4 players. Yeah, back in the day. If you just like a fun kind of arcadey, it's sponsored by, Beetle, like VWs, like you're racing in like VW bugs. So, it sounds like, I don't know. It's just fun. It sounds like it would be. Bugs sound fun. That's what it is. Like I said, the hidden passages, nitro boost. It's just great. It's not super hard. And yeah, that's about the gist of mine. Just, I'm on that N64 kick, and it's nice going back to it.
Yeah, it's definitely. Now, what about you, Dave? What have you been playing?
A lot of jumping around as usual. The one that I've been spending the most time with is Star Fox Zero.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Yeah, I beat that last weekend, and yeah, I remember we were talking before we did the show. We were talking about how, the big thing that people have been griping on with Star Fox Zero is the controls. Everyone's like, oh, the controls are horrible, but like you said before we did the show, you get used to it, and it's very enjoyable. I've had so much fun playing it.
Yeah, it's get past that learning curve, and it's very manageable. And I think the cool thing is that the skill ceiling is really high. It's tricky because you can do so much, so you can keep getting better. And I think this is one that you're going to be able to go back to years from now and still push the scores higher.
Indeed, and that's getting to games I've been playing. That was definitely that's on my list was Star Fox Zero. I beat that last weekend. And I had so much fun with it. I played a little bit of Star Fox Guard, and I remember that was a game that you were asking me about, James, and this gives me a chance to talk about it more.
I just thought it was really cool that it came with a bonus, like an extra game. Like
yeah.
Just the idea that whether it's just for this first run of pre-orders or if it's one, maybe if they run out, they put up as a download eventually, but at least for the ones that jumped in on the first run of it, I think it's an awesome bonus, and it's not any kind of extra price. It's just here, you're getting it now. It's an extra game.
Yeah, and it's surprisingly a very addictive game. Now, I will say, like, when I saw the prototype last year of Robot Guard, which was the prototype for Star Fox Guard, I was not interested in it. I was like, what is this? I don't want to watch this. I want to see more Mario Maker, And I went and I played it after I beat Star Fox Zero, and it's surprisingly addicting. Now, it's pretty much a tower defense game. Your gamepad, you control the different cameras and turrets that are, on that base, and you're trying to stop these robots from coming on base and destroying the main power supply. So you're using your gamepad to change different views, and when you look on the television, you see all the different camera angles from each camera. I think there's like 9 or 12 different cameras, and you change it, and then you like shoot the robot, and it becomes like very tedious because you'll have 3 robots on one side coming in, you try to kill them, and then there's other robots coming in from behind you. And, the robots start getting smarter. I know there was one robot that actually changes what's on the camera. Like, he puts up fake footage, so you think that, no one's at that area.
Whoa.
Yeah, it gets crazy, man. And then, of course, there's, you get other power-ups, like you can actually freeze the robots, so you can kind of stop them in place, so you can go after the more powerful ones while they're frozen. It's got 40 different missions, and it's got a bunch of side missions to it too. So even though it's a free game with Star Fox Zero, it's not just a shovelware game. I feel like this is something that would be great for, even though it doesn't have like online or co-op. It's got online to it, but it's not like co-op. I could see this being a great game for when your friends are over and you're all sitting on the couch and you can all play this together. Like, someone's like, hey, man, look over there at the, camera three.
What?
Yeah, so, that's really cool. So I've been playing that. I did a recent review of The Fireman for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom on my YouTube channel. So I was playing that a lot this week, kind of, refreshing my memory of it. I absolutely love that game. And, I found out there was actually a sequel called The Fireman 2 on PlayStation, and it was only released in Japan, so I played a little bit of that online, and I gotta find an English patch for it because it's very text heavy and it's very voice acting heavy. So unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know how to do playing it because I don't know a lick of Japanese. So.
It's not quite as easy as the wrestling games are to get
through. Yeah, so I mean, other than that, I dabbled a little bit with Dark Souls 3. I need to really pick up my ante and play some more of that. I've gotten some of my friends that got it at the same time I did, and they've already beaten it. And they're like, so how far have you gotten in Dark Souls 3? And I'm like, oh, you know, so it's like one of those things. But the last thing I wanted to talk about what games I've been playing recently, and it's not actually video games, and this is kind of a local shout out. Yesterday was Free Comic Book Day, so I went and got some free comics. I went to Game Giant, my local retro store, bought some Sega Saturn games. Got got Super Hang-On GP and Soviet Strike for some good prices. And you know, I went back home and I got a call from a friend of mine. Him and I went to get some lunch, and we went to Pachinko World. Now, what's really interesting about this is I have never played Pachinko before. And we've heard about this place opening up in town recently, and we finally got to go see it. It is awesome. It's got rows and rows of Pachinko machines, and they're almost like works of art, you know, because they had a Pachinko machine for like Gundam Wing. They had one for Ultraman. They had one for King Kong, and my favorite was X Japan. They had one for that, and it was really, really cool. And I found out that you know, the owner. I made a post of it on Facebook, and I found out the owner is a big fan of X Japan as well. So been talking to him on Facebook. But yeah, if you guys are local, definitely check out Pachinko World. That's so much fun. But I'm hoping that, you know, it stays in town for a good while, because this is something that we definitely need more in town.
It's interesting. What do you get, like tickets, or do you get like money and shit from it?
Well, I think, you know, you get like little jackpots, like you can win prizes, and I think you can even win like Visa gift cards and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much in a nutshell what I've been playing recently. And yeah, I definitely want to thank you, Dave, for being on the show, and I urge all the listeners to definitely check out The Bounty. And again, all of his info is going to be on the description below. To check out The Bounty, and I definitely want to hear some comments on the episode. If you guys play The Bounty, tell us what you think about it. And again, big thanks to Mike Wright for hooking us up with our special guest. And Mike, we will get you on the podcast soon, my friend. But anyway, guys, if you're listening to this on Podomatic.com, you can also check us out on YouTube.com/Xander Skullion. So I do more than just the audio podcast. I also do videos, like my recent review of the Fireman for the Super Famicom. But as always, guys, thanks, Dave, for being on the show. And
hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, definitely,
Appreciate
man. And as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant evening, everybody.
Can't get enough of XS Gaming Podcast? Be sure to check out our audio podcast on Podomatic.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you have a YouTube channel or podcast you'd like to share, be sure to check us out on Facebook on our group page and join the community. As always, guys, thank you so much for all the support, and happy gaming.